Today we're going to be talking about the new path to legal innovation, law, being myself, technology, and collaboration. We're going to share a bit about our journey, our personal journey, and the journey of LawSwitch, why and how we built LawSwitch, and what is a legal tech product, and what legal tech products are out there, how to innovate, and how to implement legal tech products into your law firm, and some of the tips and traps to be aware of and questions to ask when implementing some legal tech. So feel free to write down questions. At the end, as Terry said, we'll have an opportunity for Q&A. Feel free to ask either of us anything in open session, and we will stay around afterwards. Some details of our contact details are on our business cards or website as well, so feel free to contact us. So our journey started with spending time looking at our why. What drives Tim and I together and separately, and it's important, I would encourage you to work out your why. What's your personal why, and what's your why as a firm? What are the challenges that your firm faces, particularly around things that can be adapted and legal tech can assist in those challenges. So really look at what is your why before you start looking at what legal tech products are out there and what you should implement. So looking at my journey personally, I have been in the legal industry for almost 20 years now. I started out as a paralegal at a legal agent's, and yes, I started out on a typewriter. So we didn't have the computers back then, and no, I'm not that old, but yes, started out on the typewriter. When I graduated, I worked at 3 different law firms for 4 years each in Sydney, our hometown, and I guess you could say they were traditional law firms, traditional partnership structures, traditional technology, and traditional, I want to hear your opinion in the annual performance review. But I soon realised that I wasn't necessarily the traditional lawyer. I was perhaps more the catalyst for change. I was one to express ideas on why and how the firm should change, much to the joy of some of the partners at times. So after completing my accredited specialist in family law and becoming a nationally accredited mediator and family dispute resolution practitioner, I decided to start my own firm, Copeman Family Law, with a focus on resolution without court. And focused on family law mediation and collaborative practice in the role of a coach. So I started that at the end of 2016, and knowing that it was quite unheard of to practice exclusively in family law mediation and collaborative practice, I also decided to pursue my passion for teaching. So I'd done some contract work for the Law Society, and I continue to do that. But I also took on a role at the College of Law as an adjunct lecturer in their practical legal training. And I soon realised that the next generation of lawyers is changing. Their expectations are changing, their technological savviness is changing, and that's going to have an impact on the way we practice law moving into the future. So that's where I've been up to the point of us having discussions last year.
Yeah, my story is obviously different, being more of a technologist. I went to the University of Wollongong down in Sydney and did a Bachelor of Creative Arts and New Media, and that's where I really fell in love with the web and mobile and the internet, and realised that unlike print media, which was where I started my studies, the web means that you could get things out instantly and you could create things that people could start interacting with and getting value from straight away. Being a developer, that's where I started off. I started building websites, mobile applications for a broad range of industries. I moved into solution architecture and then product management, and then into head of technology and innovation style roles like that. But for me, I'm constantly a problem solver. I'm always looking at problems that I find everywhere, and I'm looking for the solutions. But more importantly, I think it's about how I can productize them. I'm always looking at, so there's a problem and here's a solution, but how can we productize it? How can we take that to market so that other people can benefit from that? And I'm always thinking about how you can then market it and what's the the elevator pitch and all of that kind of thing. And I drive Fee mad all the time because I've always got about 5 or 6 ideas that I want to do, and she keeps coming back and saying, just do one. So for me, the journey has always been, focused and centered around technology. In my different roles across e-commerce, e-learning and content, I've worked with, law clients and law firms. So the needs from a technology point of view, to me, has been quite a familiar story.
So, looking at our personal journey and some insights on why and how we developed and launched LawSwitch. So I have a love of learning. I think in that first couple of years when I started my own practice, I did about 200 hours of continuing professional development to really retrain from that traditional mode of thinking to new law. One of the conferences I attended was the Specialist Legal Conference in Family Law and Dispute Resolution last July. And I was inspired by Terry and her talk on what's next for dispute resolution, and just got me thinking that it's not just family law and a move towards dispute resolution that's changing, but also technology is changing, and that is going to have, or is having, an impact on the way we practice law. So after that conference, I reflected, and having a love of learning, I decided that we should attend I think we attended 3 or 4 legal tech conferences at the second part of last year, and really worked out that the legal industry is ready now for the 21st century and ready for disruption, and there's a lot of opportunities out there, and particularly being a husband-wife legal tech team, that there's opportunities that we could explore at this time.
Yes, at the same time, I was helping Fee, with Copeman Family Law, figuring out how to set things up, and I kept on saying, look, I think, why isn't it all in the cloud? Surely a law firm can run completely in the cloud. And that was part of the challenge that we wanted to take up, was to not have a server under the desk and big complicated networks, but can we run a law firm from the cloud? So we explored a lot of the Google products and a few other productivity tools, some of which we'll mention later on, to give you a bit of perspective on that. So we were working, quite hard, I think, to get that balance right, because there is a balance there. But at the same time, around about that point last year, the company that I was working for, the parent company, I should say, went into administration. So you get that call at 10:30 at night that you never want to get, please don't come in tomorrow. And then a couple of days later, that was it. That was it for the company. And so I found myself in a unique position where, for a 2-week window, I didn't have anything to do, no job to go to. And that was really, I think, the catalyst for us taking a step back and saying, well, I can always go and get another job. But if we could do something else, what would it look like? And so we started exploring, I guess, again, using Kirkman Family Law as that case study. What could we do? Where can technology play a good role in what you're doing? And we zeroed in on the client interactions and the client engagement processes, and asking Fee, around the dinner table quite often, she would say, I'm waiting on this document, I need the same information, and realise that it was quite, the similar kind of conversations and structure and documents that you need over and over again. Yes, the clients are different, the needs are different, but there is repetition there. And I keep on putting on my developer hat and saying, well, look, if there's a pattern there, if you can repeat something over and over, then there's an opportunity to automate it. And so from there, we saw a real big opportunity to help law firms automate that client engagement aspect. But as it was, the company that I was working for got bought, so I ended up going back to work for a 3-month period there. But I think we had the business plan. We knew we wanted to do this. And so I only really lasted there about 3 months.
And at the same time as exploring what this looked like, we were looking at the market. We were looking specifically in my area of expertise in family law and networking. I quite like networking. And soon enough, an opportunity came about to collaborate, to develop a family law property settlement online tool, as well as looking at what we'd discussed as the client intake product, which is now LawSwitch. So that's when we really sat down and over kitchen table discussions, over a few drinks on the back of a napkin planning, we decided to start a legal tech company, which is Think Law Group. Got some business cards there, and decided that we will together, well, he will in the tech side, I will put the input from the legal side, develop legal tech products, and that's what we'll do.
Yeah, so quit work, started developing from the garage. We set out with LawSwitch initially. We wanted to replicate and automate that client engagement process and bring it online, help you to provide that through your website. So that was the goal for LawSwitch. That's what we were trying to build. We wanted to build it as a software as a service model product, so completely in the cloud. And yes, we did an investigation around what we needed to do there. I guess if it means anything, you can ask me further if you want to know a little bit more about what it's like to build a legal tech product, but we decided to use the Google Cloud. To handle payments, we decided to use Stripe to offset that. Plasso to handle membership and subscriptions. What else did we use? Explored lots of AI. So we wanted to understand what how the technology could really strengthen the offering. So we explored things like natural language processing and machine learning, and also the experience. So if you're talking about the client engagement, what does that look like? And so often it evolves around conversations. It's conversations that drive what you do. Conversations with your client, taking instructions, which then determines what you do next. And we realised that forms weren't really a great kind of interface for that. They're a little bit sterile and don't reflect a conversation. That's where chatbots really kind of came up. That conversational style interface really reflects a humanistic experience. And so then we decided to explore that. We built a chatbot interface that you could embed into your website. And that's when we really decided that that automation piece was really the strength behind chatbots. So we spent about 3-4 months building a minimum viable product. We decided that initially we would build that with the family law context in mind. Fiona being family law, that made a lot of sense. But we knew that what we built could be replicated across many areas of law, disciplines and processes.
And that's when we went back to our networks and realised that whilst I can do the family law intakes, that it could be replicated in other areas of law. So we spoke to law firms and used them as beta pilot testers to create intakes around criminal law, wills and estates, business law, personal injury, commercial leasing, and we're looking at other areas of law that we could have out-of-the-box intake processes to use with LawSwitch. At the same time, those beta testers were providing feedback and really enabled us to tweak the product before we went to market. So, for example, integrating the booking pages and calendars with your Google calendars and Outlook calendars, and the AI and the natural language processing around some of the questions that we ask with the chatbots. So it really was very valuable feedback to have before we went to market. But at the same time, I'm trying to run Copeman Family Law, and we're doing this private beta and developing the LawSwitch product. But of course, there's then the business considerations. So a lot of that fell on me as well for the business considerations. We got some expert advice around marketing, as well as some business advice, accounting advice. We struggled with the name LawSwitch, I think, whole way down at the snow. We were trying to work out what name should we come up with, but I think it was a race down the mountain and I came up with the name.
That's not what it
went. No. We also really struggled with the company structure as well, looking at, well, LawSwitch will be our first product, but are we going to develop other products? So we looked at the parent company being Think Law Group, and then having separate websites and separate products, business names for the different products we will develop. We also got some expert advice around the legal documents that we need to enter into. Obviously, being a family lawyer, I'm not a business law expert. And there's software as a service agreement. We wanted to get that right for our clients, as well as the privacy policies, the website policies because we would be capturing, or we are capturing, confidential information. So to make sure all of those agreements are tight. Also with the family law property settlement tool, we looked at we have entered into a license agreement and a royalty agreement around that. So it's important to get those agreements right. It's important to check the business names and the domain names. We've also trademarked the LawSwitch name and looked at the insurances. So unlike other services or products, for a software as a service product, it's important to have that cyber security as well as product insurance and professional indemnity insurance. So that took a bit of time to get our head around, and we're still exploring all of those business considerations as well.
Yeah, so might take a step back. Obviously that's our story. We've built a product, husband and wife, legal and tech. But might just talk a little bit about what legal tech is. So we talked about our legal tech products, but you might be thinking, what actually is legal tech? And I just want to say that I think from my perspective, really what's been the biggest catalyst for the rise of fintech and legal tech and all of these different industries is the cloud. Because what it's enabled is the commoditisation of services and products and platforms and tools. And so now at a really low cost, you can get started with really infinite power, infinite scale, infinite processing. It's at your fingertips. You also have access to AI tools and other kind of automation tools that in the past would have cost you tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to get started with. So because the cloud and the commoditisation is here and it's really accessible, it allows people like us to be able to build products on top of that. And so we're able to leverage those cloud tools and those cloud platforms and build highly focused products, LawSwitch being one, but there's many, many others which we'll highlight today. So legal tech really is it's a term for technology-based products that are designed for specific use within the legal industry. So they really try and tap into opportunities or gaps that exist within the legal industry or are becoming new, not just what's already been, but what's coming, and usually seek to provide a tool or a service that will help you with what you do in your day-to-day activity. So that's my version of what legal tech is.
And for me as legal, sometimes these terms are unfamiliar to me, so perhaps I'll get Tim to respond to what some of these legal tech concepts are. AI, we mention AI and it seems to be the buzzword at the moment. I know that it means artificial intelligence, but Tim, from a law perspective, what is AI?
Yeah, we didn't script this, but we asked Fee's mum this question. She said, it's artificial information.
No. Insemination.
Oh, sorry. Which is definitely not. But yeah, so look, AI really at a really loose term, and all of these are going to be super loose, so don't hold me to any of these. I'll try and do it in about a minute each. But really AI is a tool, is a product where what it does, you would consider to be in the realms of only humans being able to do it. So, for instance, self-driving cars is a great example. You think, well, only humans can do that. Playing Go and beating a human, only humans can do that. So that's really what AI is. The fundamental thing about it is it's about learning. So machines can actually learn, which we'll get into a tick. But for law specifically, the applications of a machine that can apply a degree of intelligence and can learn and can then adapt and respond, it's things like contract assessments and being able to review things at scale and at speed. It's outcome recommendations, so being able to have a look at a set of predefined parameters and some new parameters and being able to provide an assessment on that, and also predictions as well is a commonplace where AI is being able to be used as well.
And automation, I was reading an article that said in 10 years' time, 15% of our work that we're currently doing as lawyers will be automated. So what is automation?
Okay, so automation is really a process. That's what it's about, is defining steps. You start somewhere and you finish with an output. So the output might be, for instance, a document, it might be an agreement, it might be an email, something like that. But if you can predefine what the steps are, then a machine can run through them and constantly output the same thing. So that's what automation really is. It's about following a predefined process to end up with an output, which again in a legal context, it's usually around documents, drafting documents, agreements, emails and things like that.
And machine learning, I know with the natural language processing that we're using in LawSwitch, we have a knowledge base and we're trying to teach it how to respond. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so machine learning, and you might also hear the term deep learning, but more so machine learning is about providing a really big smart computer with a whole lot of information, so a data set. So it might be a set of similar contracts, it might be a set of hundreds of thousands of photos, it might be the Twitter feed, it could be any kind of data set, but it needs to be quite big, and then you provide it with training. Here's the data that you have, this is what you need to do with it. So either find discrepancies in the content, in the information, go and match particular people in photos, whatever it might be. So you give it a training set, this is the right answer, this is the wrong answer, these are the patterns you're looking for, these are the patterns that you aren't looking for. So the more training that you can give it in the information, the more precise it's going to get. And then you pretty much tell it what the kind of outcome that you want out of the machine. So I want you to go and find, pictures of Fiona in the crowd, or I want you to go and find where the similar paragraph has been used over and over again, where it hasn't, or where you've defined a term and haven't used it, and so on and so forth. I saw one example the other day which was pretty meaningless, where you can train it to look at Twitter and tell out of all the tweets which ones are Donald Trump's, for instance, based on the kind of language and terminology that he uses. That's fairly useless, but it can have highly practical applications. So really, with law, researching and reviewing is a place where machine learning can be highly effective, where you can throw it lots and lots of documents and it can come back with responses, in contracts and things like that, like within seconds.
Okay. So LawSwitch does use some AI and automation and machine learning, but it's also becoming known as a legal chatbot platform. So what is a chatbot?
Yeah, a chatbot is something that uses that conversational style interface that I mentioned before. If you're kind of wondering what that is, if you use WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger or any of those kind of chat, even SMS, that's a conversational experience that you're using. So that's what chatbots use. That's what they look like. But as compared to, say, live chat, if you've been to a website and this thing pops up and wants to start talking with you, chatbots are automated. So a chatbot is capable of having a meaningful conversation and going through a structured flow and respond to how you're responding and maybe dive into further questions, but it can do that automatically without the need of a human sitting behind there.
Okay. And blockchain, LawSwitch doesn't use blockchain, but I've heard that as being a buzzword. What is blockchain and how is that relevant for law firms? Very briefly.
Yeah, so this is another one that,
we don't have a lot of time.
So my take on blockchain, it's a network, it's a decentralized network of nodes all around the world that have a universal ledger. So that's about registering a unit of work. So something that's been done, and each of the nodes needs to kind of prove that that work's actually been done. But because it's a ledger and it's distributed, across the world on all these nodes, it's highly transparent. You can see that ledger, you can review that ledger, and because it is distributed globally, it can't be tampered with. You can't just jump onto one node and make a change to a particular unit of work. It won't be replicated because every single node has to prove through a series of steps that that work is actually valid. So the blockchain, I guess for law, smart contracts is a term that gets connected to the blockchain quite often, the ability to be able to register that something's been done and that it's logged and it's stored and it's transparent. Not so much the contract itself, but the work that has been done is registered.
And lastly, productivity tools, what are they?
What's productivity tools, look, they span lots of different areas, whether it's project management, matter management, contract review, online meetings, and the list goes on. But there's many of these tools which are cloud-based. Quite often, increasingly, they're using AI tools to learn and adapt to how you use them as well. But that's the concept behind productivity tools. Yeah.
Okay. So we've talked a bit about legal tech, what it is. What are some of the legal tech products out there?
So hopefully you find this interesting. We've put together, it's called a market map. It's certainly not the first time that this has been put together, but the idea here is just to map a few different activities that you may do as a lawyer or within your law firm: practice management, documents, online legal services, IP management, research, client engagement, for instance. And these are some Australian or startups that you could certainly use within an Australian legal context that feel free to try out. We are part of the ALTA, which is the Australian Legal Technology Association, which is a collection of Australian startups in the legal space. And there are a few of our associates in there, Lexu, for instance, Office Maps, Legaler, you'll see up there in Practice Management, Contract Probe, Zakia, and there's a bunch more in there as well. But this is probably a good starting point if you'd like to know, what are some great products that you could potentially look at and review and start to assess. Probably recommend you start it there. Of course, LawSwitch is under that client engagement section. So we've introduced a bunch of legal tech startups and products. We're from LawSwitch, so I might take a quick opportunity to show you what LawSwitch looks like. You can get an understanding of, potentially, what a tool like LawSwitch is and how you could use it in your own firm. I'll try not to trip on the cable here. But look, what LawSwitch is it's a set of tools that turns your website into an automated booking and intake platform. So the idea is that it helps your law firm convert more visitors to clients. So if you think about it in terms of the life cycle of a client, it's at that really pointy end. It's about engaging with them when they're first, deciding to, use your services, come on board with your law firm. So that's where it sits in the cycle. It does that through, obviously, chatbots we've mentioned a few times, so those automated conversations that can engage with people at the right time and take them through those conversations. It comes with booking pages, so you can start to provide pages that, for your lawyers, so people can, book you straight away for consultations, initial meetings and things like that. It's got a knowledge base, so you can start to build up responses, so information about your firm, everything from your opening hours, where you're located, to how you do billing, what areas of law that you practice in, so on and so forth. And it can actually then handle inquiries for you. So as people may type in a question to the chatbot, it can then respond with appropriate responses, matching it up using some AI there. And it's also got a client portal so that you can, as part of that engagement, if you want, somebody's had a conversation with a chatbot, booked in a meeting, for next Thursday, you can send them emails and then encourage them to, provide some initial documentation if they want. The whole intention is to get everybody better prepared and start self-servicing. I think clients, are starting to expect a little bit more of a self-service model. There's so many services online where you literally do everything online. You're filling in the forms, you're uploading the documents, and you hit submit. So LawSwitch certainly helps you provide a little bit more of that self-serviceness to our clients.
And LawSwitch can also be customised and branded to your specific law firm. So it's not an out-of-the-box, these are the questions you have to ask. The questions can be tailored to what you want to obtain from your client and what information you want to give to your client. And you can also have webhooks and integrations with other websites, other systems, etc. as well.
Yep.
So Tim will do a brief demo.
Mm-hmm. We'll keep it short and sweet, but just to give you an idea of how it works and what it looks like. How does that look? What I might actually do, sorry, bear with me, is I'm just going to mirror. 3, 2, 1, great, done. So what you're looking at here is just a dummy website for a typical law firm. It's got some of the components that you might already have on your website, so your law firm. But what chatbots do is they can either, from a LawSwitch point of view anyway, is they can either appear on the page like this one here, hi, welcome to LawSwitch, or whatever the name of your firm is, how can I help you today? As Fee said, everything's customizable. You can put your own logo and your own words and everything in there. Just encouraging people to click there if they do have questions, they can't find the information. You might ask them to book a meeting, but if you click it, it will pop up, and it's quite familiar, as you can see there. Welcome to LawSwitch. How can I help? And you can, where are you located? And you can see there it's going to start responding to me from the knowledge base, which you can manage. So it's, I can then type in another query if I want. I can just say, yep, that answered my question. Or alternatively, of course, I can say, contact me, and it's then going to start asking me with details so that you don't lose that inquiry, and then it's going to us finish off by then sending through an email to everyone based on this. But I might just minimise that one for the moment and show you a few others. So also in this page, just to give you an indication, there's about 16 different chatbots connected up here, not that you'd know it, but based on how you interact with the page, they will then subtly start interacting. So for instance, the big Let's Get Started button, if I click that, it's actually going to present me with another chatbot. This one here has a introduction screen. This is really helpful if it is going to be a bit more of a detailed conversation. You can say, this is what this is all about. These are the kind of questions that we're going to ask. This is why we're going to ask them. This is what we're going to do with your information, just to set the scene so that the person, before they even launch into the conversation, they know what to expect. They're a little bit more, potentially at ease with it, depending on how complex the conversation might be. But if I click Let's Start, this is then going to say I can organise a free telephone consultation with one of our lawyers. Everything is private and confidential. I just need to ask a few questions. It doesn't provide any legal advice. It's really, collecting the same kind of information you would typically collect on a form, for instance. So if I say Let's Get Started, it's going to ask for my name again. And I'll just go a little bit further into this so you can see the kind of questions and the way that you can respond. So this one's about legal structuring. So, a law firm that may help people set up businesses and structure businesses and give them advice around that. So this one's going to just ask me a little bit of information about my business and is saying, do I already have a business? I do. And can I put in the ABN? Which I can. Here's one I prepared earlier. So what it's actually doing now is it's gone and it's looked up the government's database of ABN numbers behind the scenes, and it's got all the information on Copeman Family Law here. Now it's just presenting me with the name, and I can say, yep, that's correct. But what all that additional information, the research that it's just done there, will be included in the email that you'll receive as a lawyer. Is it a public company, private company, when was it set up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you'll be able to then use that in the automation further on down the track. So include it in the email if you like, but you can also then include that in documents. So the LawSwitch chatbots can also generate sets of documents after the conversation, letters, for instance, file notes, legal documents, and you can use any information captured in the conversation here in the emails and those documents. But which industry do you primarily operate? Legal services, for instance. You can see you can ask people to respond by typing in. You can ask people to respond by clicking on buttons where you know that you would typically, the responses would only be 2 or 3 or 4, maybe 5 typical responses, and where you'd really like to guide the conversation down a particular path. Family law, for instance, you might say, do you have children? And they might say yes or no. And that's an obvious point where you might then want to kind of ask a couple more questions, if they say yes versus if they say no. So look, I might not go any further because I think you get the idea. But the last one, of course, is you can click on the book a meeting and just get a nice and easy to use booking page that allows people to find my availabilities, click on one, and then fill in the form and hit book time. That integrates with my calendar, so I don't need to do anything. As soon as I hit book time, I'm now booked out on my calendar, and all the availability times are my available time in my calendar. So it's not exposing when I'm free. It is exposing when I'm free, but it's not exposing the meetings that I've got in my calendar. It doesn't do any of that. So hopefully that gives you a little taste of what LawSwitch looks like. If you want to know more, obviously, you can ask for a demo and we can give you that too.
You're showing the emails.
Show the emails? Yep, okay, I can show the emails. I didn't actually finish your conversation, but let me see here. More deleted items. No.
That's okay.
Yep.
And what happens is the emails are then automated and sent to both the client and to the lawyer with that calendar booking that you can insert into your diary, as well as some general information. So what I do in my family law intake bot is if they ask questions around parenting and property, then I'll provide the family law brochures for parenting and property, whereas if they say, no, we don't have children, I can customise that intake email just to provide them the brochures in regards to property. And so that email can be, again, customised and tailored for your specific law firm.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay.
So we've given you a brief overview of LawSwitch, and feel free to book in a demo. We offer the free hour demo to go into more depth as to the different aspects and functionalities of it. But just going back to the presentation, what is the likely impact of legal tech? So we've looked at some legal tech products, but what's the likely impact on you as a lawyer and your law firm? I think there has been some fear that the role of lawyers will be replaced by robots. We don't see that happening in the near future, in any event, but I think having gone to a number of legal tech conferences and done a lot of reading in this area, we think that legal tech can enable your role and really assist you in your role as a lawyer, and remove a lot of that repetitive work, remove a lot of the administrative work, perhaps the boring tasks, and save you a lot of time. There's also a shift towards being a more collaborative lawyer, a more people-focused, a more business-focused lawyer that's tech-savvy. As it says in this quote from the Human and Cloud 2017, technology becomes a partner, and it can help you, therefore, deliver client value, enable you to spend more time with the client doing the work that only you can do as a lawyer. So it can really supplement and complement the work that you do as a lawyer. Technology is an enabler that can supplement and complement that work. So how do we implement legal tech into our law firms? How do we do that? So the traditional innovation in a law firm, and I take this slide with the permission of Terry, was that you'd have an idea, and some ideas were more important than other ideas. The partner, down senior associate, lawyers, secretaries, receptionists, etc., the hierarchical value of ideas. And then there would be a business case, various business meetings, business plans, voting, proposals, working groups, committees. That might take weeks, months, years, decades to go through before you launch that idea. And when you launch the idea, it's about piloting, reviewing, more consultations, voting, looking at whether it works. So that's the traditional way of innovating in a law firm, whereas the new way of innovating, which we would encourage you to adopt, is really all ideas are equal. And they can come from within, from anyone within, an entrepreneurial model, and they can also come from outside, looking at entrepreneurs, tech partners, clients. An idea should be given value no matter where it comes from. And then to experiment. So to be willing to fail fast, fail often. And lawyers, we don't cope with failure very much at all. But with legal tech, sometimes there will be mistakes, and you have to be willing to trial, test and trial, and collaborate with clients and key stakeholders along the way. And then it's about launching and not necessarily waiting until it's 100% perfect, but going to market and with perhaps less than 100% certainty of success, and then measuring that success and being willing to reiterate along the way, to test and change and update the product. And that's definitely what we've done with LawSwitch. Since we've launched, we're getting feedback and 2 a.m. change to the product to make it fit with what the client wants. So where do you see yourself? If we look at this innovation chart, where are you personally and where is your firm? Okay, where are you personally and where is your firm? If you're here today, you're probably in that first 2.5%. You're an innovator. But this also represents a time scale. So if you don't start to adopt these legal tech products into your law firm, you will, as time goes by, become part of that majority. Okay? Whereas if you start to adopt legal technology now, you have that opportunity to gain your innovative advantage. And there's always that gap between the innovators and the early adopters to the rest of the general population. Okay, so being the innovator, you do need to be aware that a lot of people won't be using these legal tech products, and you will be testing them, but it will give you that innovative advantage and competitive advantage moving forward. So if you're keen to adopt legal technology and don't have a husband-wife team like we do, where do you start? Well, Tim, where do we start?
Yeah, where do you start? Look, it's probably the best place to start is by looking to come on board with a technology partner. So that might be internally by hiring. It might also be externally, with a partner that understands technology and law and can really come alongside your law firm, understand what you're trying to do, where you want to go, and can kind of help you along that journey. So what we might do now is I'm going to just take some time just to talk about some considerations. So for my reflection, working with law firms, and different technology products and what's involved in implementing them within companies, and also, building a legal tech product and understanding how you should and need to evaluate them and review them and assess them and then implement them as well. So the first thing that I'd say is probably look to the cloud. Look for SaaS products. There's no servers needed. They're highly scalable. They're highly resilient. And they also come with predictable pricing, which is also a really good thing. Usually they can start off quite cheap and then scale as you need to. So whether that's from a LawSwitch point of view, it's the number of chatbots that you want to use, those different kind of conversations. But for other products, it might be per user, per seat, that kind of thing. But you always can understand what the pricing looks like, and you only start paying more as you start using more. So that's a really good thing about the SaaS model. Also, with SaaS products, usually all you need is an internet connection and a browser. You don't need to worry too much about installation and things like that. Test and reiterate. Fee did highlight that before on the slide as being something that's really important when it comes to adopting anything. But test and reiterate, I guess understand that the first thing that you roll out, whether it's internal or external, probably won't be 100%. So take the time to, fine tune it and get it right. And continue to do that. Start with a minimum viable product, whatever that looks like. Again, whether it's internally rolling out a new tool for your staff, or whether it's an external tool that you're looking at using on your website or beyond, and run a pilot. So try and find some trusted people internally or externally when it comes to clients, and run a pilot with them. Tell them that, get their feedback, get it early, and then take that on board and iterate as fast as you can. That's certainly what our journey's been about. And try and be data driven. So, the more information that you can get around, the tool, how the tool's going. So whether that's surveys and questionnaires internally, or whether that's actual data that you're getting from the tools that you can use to make educated decisions, the better. So I encourage you to be data driven as well in approach and adoption to any, technology that you want to use. You need to understand the technology that you're using. That's a really, really big part of this as well. Things may not go to plan if you don't understand it. And the best and easiest way to do that is to roll your sleeves up and get dirty, have a play with it, find out how it works, invest a little bit of time in just kind of opening up the bonnet. Again, work with a trusted partner, work with a vendor, get them to give you training or whatever it might be so that you're comfortable with what you're using, you understand how it works. But I really recommend getting your hands dirty when it comes to adopting legal technology. Also protect yourself. So review the agreements. Fee did talk about, the software as a service agreements and the privacy agreements and all of those kind of things that we've had to put in place as a technology provider. So review those agreements, find out what the SLAs or the service level agreements are. Make sure that they're suitable for, how you intend to use that. And if you are looking at providing a service outward, so something for your clients and the general public that can use. Please review any applicable insurances that you might need to get that you may not have traditionally as a law firm. For instance, cyber is one of those ones that you might need to consider. So yeah, insurances is another big consideration in that that protect yourself consideration. I've got up here also hopefully some good takeaways, some questions to ask. So if you are looking at working with a technology, either a technology vendor like us, or a technology partner who can come alongside and help craft these solutions for you and help you implement them within your law firm, here are some things I think that are really important to cover off. So the first one there is data. So some questions to ask. What does that mean? Data. So that's all the information that they might be storing or collecting. So things like, where is my data being stored? Is it being stored here in Australia? Is it being stored overseas? Is it being stored in a laptop under my desk? These are all important things. If it's a computer that you're going to have in your office, maybe you need to improve your office security, for instance. And how is my data protected? So, are you encrypting it? Can I be sure that my data is not going to get mixed up in other people's data? It's simple questions that they should be able to answer, but they're important to you. From a LawSwitch point of view, you have a choice whether you want to store it in the US or in Australian data centres, and we also encrypt the data at 3 different points along the way. When you first capture it and you send it back to the servers, we encrypt it again once we've collected it, and then we encrypt it again once it's actually being stored physically on the servers. Scalability and reliability is another kind of really big important point. And the question there, if you can summarise it, is can this grow and scale with my law firm? So we're here today, and this is either how much staff we use, or this is our plan in adopting this technology, but we want to go here. This is what we want to go. So, how can you, demonstrate or show to me that you're going to be able to scale with that growth that we want to achieve, or, these plans that we have. So the scalability is a really important question, and reliability, so you're going to have downtime. Is it always going to be up? What does that look like? Because that may have an impact to the way that you run your business. Support and maintenance is another big one. Again, the simple question, how will you support me? Is support here in Australia? Is it overseas? What are those hours? Because if it's overseas, you might not only be able to talk to them at 11 p.m. through to 7 a.m. Our time, which can be really problematic. Can I talk to somebody? Is it an email? Is it a phone call? What does that look like? So that's also quite important to ask those questions. It's to get those answers. So from a LawSwitch point of view, we certainly support you through direct, communication, emails and phone calls and training and support where you need it. Box or build. I'm not going to spend much time on this one because this is a completely different topic, but when you are working with a technology vendor and you're explaining what you'd like to do, they might say, well, here's a product that you can just use, that's box. Something that's out of the box, versus we're going to need to build something for you that's going to be unique for you. So ask that question, is it just going to be a product, or are you going to be building something for me? Because there are implications and impacts depending on what you go for there. The last one, metrics. How can we measure success? So what does success look like in whatever you're planning on doing with the legal technology product? And then how can we measure it? So what are the reports I'm going to get? What's the data that I'm going to have access to? So ask the questions of your vendor or your partner and make sure that they're giving you the reports or you have access to that data that you need. So perhaps a case study, Copeman Family Law. What does that look like? How have you adopted?
So I've adopted legal technology in a number of areas. The online legal research tools, of course. The Google Suite. So I've found the Google Suite to be really helpful in collaborating with documents with my paralegals, and also the calendars, the Gmail calendars. I'm using Zoom to conduct online mediations. And that's obviously given me the flexibility to conduct mediations anywhere. And I'm using an online legal practice management system as opposed to a server-based system. And of course, I'm using LawSwitch on my website in a number of ways. I've got a chatbot, chat bot to handle in the initial inquiries, and then I've got a chat bot to take people through the mediation intake process and provide them with specific information and obtain specific information from them, which can then automate the emails and documents I send to them, as well as the booking pages. So to have an online calendar so that people can look at my availability for mediations, because I do conduct a number of legally assisted mediations, and then book appointments. So my free telephone assessment, intake sessions, mediations, etc. I'm also in the process, and I think it will be continuing, to automate my intake emails and automate my documents using the LawSwitch chatbots. So where can legal tech bring the most value to your law firms? That's my law firm, but to your law firms. As it says here, legal tech can really allow you to do the work that you love. Okay? It can make your job far more enjoyable, and it can bring about make you far more effective and efficient. So it's those time and cost savings that legal tech can bring to your law firm. As I said earlier, it's also that competitive advantage, that innovative advantage that legal tech can bring to your law firm. And as clients' expectations change and the expectation for you to be available 24/7, legal tech can also legal tech can also assist you manage those client expectations and really add value to the work that you do for your clients. So all in all, I would encourage, and we would encourage you to choose to change, to choose to embrace legal tech, and to be innovative in your law firm. So we welcome any questions that you may have.
Very much. Thank you.